So, I'm happy to be here in Cologne temple, also known as Gauradesh. Gauradesh. Gaura and Gouda. Gaura. Which one? Gaura. Gauradesh. Gauradesh Yatra Ki Jai. Okay, I haven't been here for a while, so I should introduce myself. My name is Krishna-Kshetra Swami. What can I say about myself? I first joined the Hare Krishna movement here in Germany in 1972. So that makes me something of a dinosaur. One of the first devotees I met was His Holiness Bhakti-bhūṣana Swami when he was still a householder. I thought it might be interesting to discuss the Chaitanya-charitamrita and to do some overviewing. Have any of you read the entire Chaitanya-charitamrita? Some of you are putting up hesitant fingers like, yeah, but it was 20 years ago. Right? Yeah. Maybe it's time to revisit Chaitanya-charitamrita. I'm a little bit motivated in talking about Chaitanya-charitamrita. In recent years, I've been involved in what some call academic work, academic study, some teaching, also some writing. And recently, I've been asked to write a chapter for a book which is being put together from several authors on the subject of Gaudiya or Chaitanya Vaishnavism for scholars. In other words, it's not meant to be a popular book. It's meant to be for those who are accustomed to so-called scholarly way of thinking, researching, writing, discussing. And they've asked me to write one chapter on the topic of Chaitanya-charitamrita. So this has inspired me to, of course, I have read Chaitanya-charitamrita many parts, several times. I don't think I can say I've read the entire more than once, but many parts, different times over the years. But now I'm inspired to revisit with a certain anticipation, a certain, how to say, I want to represent the Chaitanya-charitamrita in a nice way for the scholars. And for that I need to study it again. And what helps me to do this is to talk about, to read, of course, but also to talk with devotees. And so I thought, what better opportunity than here in Cologne, in Gauradesh. Sri Chaitanya-charitamrita ki. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Veta Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Veta Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Veta Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Veta Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Veta Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Veta Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
As I said, I want to do some overviewing. Overviewing means you kind of look, you take the wide angle lens instead of the narrow angle lens. The narrow angle lens, you look at one verse and you discuss the one verse. Maybe you discuss one word, 2 words within the verse, and you can churn and you can draw so much nectar that way. Wide angle lens means we're looking at the bigger picture and seeing if we can maybe appreciate more the work, this amazing work of Krishnadas Kaviraj. And if we can appreciate it more, we just might feel more inspired to read it, to study it, to make it part of our lives. It is said that the aim of hearing Shastra is to become Shastra Chakshus. What means Chakshu? Yes. Having the eyes of Shastra, seeing the world through Shastra. And so with that aim we hear, we read, we discuss. And we read, we have really a very ideal selection of main Shastras. Our central Shastras were selected by Srila Prabhupada very wisely. He chose Bhagavad Gita, he chose Srimad Bhagavatam, he chose Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which he summarized as Nectar of Devotion, Nectar de Hingava, and he selected Sri Chaitanya-charitamrita. He also, of course, translated Ishopanishad, he translated the Upadeshamrita, but especially he considered his magnum opus to be the Srimad Bhagavatam, and at the same time he was very eager to translate and to publish the Chaitanya-charitamrita. Perhaps you know the story of Srila Prabhupada's, how he pushed his disciples in Los Angeles to produce and publish the Chaitanya-charitamrita. You know that story. Some of you know. He was speaking with the BBT manager, Bhaktivedanta Book Trust manager, expressing how he wanted he wanted now to finish Chaitanya-charitamrita, and it should be finished quickly. It should be published. And the BBT manager was saying, yes, Prabhupada, we will do. We will publish one volume every 2 months. 2 months. He thought this would be very quick. Every 2 months we'll publish a volume. Prabhupada said, I want the entire Chaitanya-charitamrita done in 2 months. And the devotee said, first his jaw dropped onto the floor. And then he said, but Prabhupada, that's not possible. It's impossible. And Srila Prabhupada, very sternly and firmly, he said, impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. What could a disciple reply to that? He can't say, well, then I'm a fool. No, he has to say, oh, well, then it must be possible. And so it was possible. The devotees made a plan. They called up several devotees from around America and I think Canada also. You have to come to Los Angeles. We're doing a marathon. They got all the artists in one room, one house, and they had them painting paintings literally day and night, like a production line. More than one painter painting the same picture, one after another. One gets tired, the next one would come and continue to paint. Day and night, and they were typesetting. They had no computers at this time. They had very crude machines. And they produced 17 volumes in 2 months. Maybe we should move more this way, more devotees. Also, I remember when I first joined here, it was in Heidelberg, Rohrbacher Straße 31. We had a little 2-story house, rented. House was made of wood. I'm sure it's been torn down since then. And one day we received a book from America. It was called Lord Chaitanya in 5 Features. What was this about? This was one chapter from Adi Lila. It was chapter 7 of the Adi Lila of Chaitanya-charitamrita. Srila Prabhupada, while he was translating in Los Angeles, he had completed chapter 7, and he was so excited about the content of chapter 7. He told devotees, print this as a separate book and distribute it. So they did, and we got few copies, I guess. And we read, and we got so excited, we could hardly stay in the temple. We were rushing out the door because in chapter 7 we hear of Lord Chaitanya's tree of love of God and how he has so many fruits and he's distributing them to everyone, but he needs help. He cannot distribute them all himself, and he's distributing them to everyone, and everyone is there plundering the storehouse of love of God, and so on. And all of this really got us inspired to spread Lord Chaitanya's mission. Okay, for those of you who just came in, this is all introductory. We want to do some overviewing, but to start the overviewing, I will go to what really is an overview in a minute. Whoops, it's not what I wanted. Yeah. And I'm sorry for the small size. I don't know how to make it bigger. There's probably some way. Anyway, we have a verse from Adi Lila, chapter 1, verse 20. And if you can see it, if you have your binoculars, we could chant this. Granthera ārambhe kari maṅgala-ācaraṇa.
Granthera ārambhe kari maṅgalācaraṇa.
Guru Krishna bhagavān tinera smaraṇa.
Guru vaiṣṇava bhagavān tinera smaraṇa.
Granthera ārambhe kari maṅgala-ācaraṇa.
Granthera ārambhe kari maṅgalācaraṇa.
Guru Krishna bhagavān tinera smaraṇa.
Guru vaiṣṇava bhagavān tinera smaraṇa.
Granthera ārambhe kari maṅgalācaraṇa.
Granthera ārambhe kari maṅgalācaraṇa.
Guru Vaiṣṇava bhagavān tinera smaraṇa.
Guru vaiṣṇava bhagavān tinera smaraṇa.
In the beginning of this narration, simply by remembering the spiritual master, the devotees of the Lord, and the personality of Godhead, I have invoked their benedictions. Previous to this, Krishnadas has invoked the benedictions of the spiritual master, the devotees, and the Lord by verses which he then expands the meaning of in the next, we can say the next 12 chapters. So one of the ways to understand when you're reading Chaitanya-charitamrita is that Krishnadas will give a verse, typically in Sanskrit, often quoted from some shastra or quoted from another devotee. Swarup Damodar especially has given some verses in the beginning. So he'll quote these and then he'll expand. He'll give essentially a Bengali translation and then he'll give some elaboration. So that's one sort of basic structure you can understand of what's going on. And so, for example, here, after he's given these several verses, he says, now this is what I've done. I've just given this invocation of benediction, maṅgala-ācaraṇa. And how have I done this? By remembering tinera smaraṇa. And then in the next verse, he's going to say, do we get the next one? Whoops. First I have to connect. Okay, what's the magic?
This is possible.
I had it before in that room. Let's see if we can get something else here. Oops. Gauradesh Kuya.
Gauradesh.
Broadcast.
Gauradesh Prabhuji.
Prabhuji.
Yes.
Okay.
Most strong.
Okay, now I need a big secret password.
Adiguru, and the English capital.
Adiguru 108.
Yes.
It's always 108. Let's see if that works. Ah, yes, okay. Let's try it again. Yes, we got it. Okay. Tinera smaraṇe hoi vighna vinashano anayase hoi nitya vanchita purana. Such remembrance destroys all difficulties and very easily enables one to fulfill his own desires. Now, an interesting thing about this, I find, let's go back. Guru, Vaishnava, Bhagavan, these three he's remembering. And in one sense, you can say that the entire Chaitanya-charitamrita is only about these three. It's only about Guru, Vaishnava, and Bhagavan. But in a very special way, because Bhagavan, in this case, is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is simultaneously he's Bhagavan, he's also the Vaishnava. He is the, you can say, the ideal, the bhakta. He is, and therefore Krishnadas, in the very beginning, he says, Vande Gurun, Isha Bhaktan, Isham Ishavatarakan, Tat Prakasham Tat Shakti, Krishna Chaitanya Sangyakam. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Sangyakam, he who is known as Sri Krishna Chaitanya, he's offering obeisance to him, and he's offering obeisance to the gurus, plural, Vande Gurun, Isha Bhaktan, the God Bhakta, literally. Isham, the Lord, Isha Avatarakan, Advaitacharya, Bhaktavataram Isham Tam Advaitacharya. No, that's another verse. So he's kind of including all of these, but all of these is being, it's all being expanded. I said the first 12 chapters, yes, but actually the whole Chaitanya-charitamrita is just about the Guru, the Vaishnavas, and Bhagavan, and how they interact. What's the life of a devotee like? That's all they described. Okay. So then what I wanted to do is, I don't know if this is going to work. I want to switch here. Yeah. Well, again, it's very small. I think very recently you had Swayam Bhagavan Keshav Maharaj here. So did he tell you about this? He wrote this amazing little book. Come on, get bigger. You can do it. Keep going. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that'll do. Some years ago, he wrote this little book. which is it's what I call a quick start guide to the Chaitanya-charitamrita. You know, when you get a new anything, probably this screen. When you got this new screen, there probably came a quick start guide. And the quick start guide said, step 1, plug it in. Step 2, turn it on. You know, it'll give very simple, basic how to get started. So Keshava Maharaj wrote this really, I find, very helpful quick start guide to Chaitanya-charitamrita, because Chaitanya-charitamrita is a quite big book, and one could be, a bit overwhelmed by it. And this book, by the way, is available for free download in digital form. Yes. I guess it's on his website. Must be. Yeah. So what he gave is, what is it? 4, 8, 12. 12 terms in which he summarizes what's going on. And he's done this in a way, follow the arrows. And he's found single word terms which really give a nice, they capture the essential idea of what's going on within a group of chapters. Sometimes it's, for example, the first is, he calls it invocation, and he's including chapters 1 through 12 of Adi Lila as giving invocation. Then the second part, incarnation, he gives only chapters 13 and 14. Third section, education, is chapters 15 and 16, and transformation is one chapter, chapter 17 of Adi Lila. And like this, there's kind of variation in numbers of chapters that he's including, but these terms I find helpful. So, invocation. I was saying, we quoted this verse 20 and then 21, and Krishnadas is saying, I'm making here an invocation, and it's auspicious, it's a good thing. And if you follow this, it's going to bring all that you could desire. But as I said, he's elaborating that over not 1, not 2, not 12 chapters. And actually, this first section of 12 chapters is one of the very special, distinctive features of Chaitanya-charitamrita, in contrast to other biographies of Lord Chaitanya. One of the reasons that we means followers of Lord Chaitanya, especially like Chaitanya-charitamrita, is because it's very rich philosophy. It's rich theology. Vrindavandas Thakur, many years before Krishnadas, Vrindavandas wrote Chaitanya Maṅgala, which then became known as Chaitanya Bhagavata, because another book by Lochandas Thakur was also Chaitanya Maṅgala. Anyway, Chaitanya Bhagavata. is very much praised by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in Chaitanya-charitamrita. He even refers to Vrindavan Das as the Vyasa of Chaitanya Lila. You couldn't get more of a compliment than that. That's topmost compliment. So he's praising Vrindavan Das to the limit. But at the same time, Krishnadas is going beyond Vrindavan Das. And one of the ways that he goes beyond is in elaborating the theology, just who is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And at the same time, he brings together, there were different theories floating around about who is this Chaitanya, who is this Vishvambar, who is this Nimai Pandit. He's somebody special. He must be some kind of avatar. And then these others, some of his associates, Nityananda, there must be something special about him also. And Advaita, Acharya, something special. So they had, some ideas were floating. The idea of there being five, Lord Chaitanya with four special associates, that was kind of floating around. I believe it was Swarup Damodar who had this idea. But it was Krishnadas Kaviraj who says, yes, we got it. Yes, he's avatar, but no, he's more than avatar. He is avatari. He is the source of all avatars. He is Swayam Bhagavān, Krishna himself. He is not only Swayam Bhagavān, Krishna himself. He is Swayam Bhagavān, Krishna himself in the mood of his beloved Srimati Radharani. And in this way, he brings together all of these ideas and elaborates them extensively. 12 chapters he gives for this. The chapters 10, 11, 12, they're elaborating on the branches of the Chaitanya tree. And so what they're describing is a community of Vaishnavas. There's Chaitanya, there's his associates, there are more associates, and they're all related. And how are they related? Well, take the example of a tree. Tree has roots. First there's a seed, then there are roots, then there's a trunk, and then there's branches, and then there's twig, sub-branches. And in this way he tells that story in quite some detail. There's some 360 maybe, associates of Lord Chaitanya mentioned in Chaitanya-charitamrita. About these relations, not today, but maybe next time I will show you something I've devised, one diagram that I think helps to see some aspect of different types of relations that Lord Chaitanya, had. Right, then comes these chapters 13 and 14, incarnation. This is about Lord Chaitanya's appearance as the little boy, Nimai, the baby, and then boy, and his adventures as a small child. And this is very much summarized because, as Krishnadas tells us, Vrindavan Das has already described all of that in much more detail. He says there's no need for me to elaborate. So actually, chapters 13 through 17, you could say, are very much summarizing. Out of respect, you can say, and also just recognizing Vrindavan Das has already described, so there's no need for repeating. Let's step back for a moment, though, and consider, when did Krishnadas Kaviraj write the Chaitanya-charitamrita? Let's get a little bit of history going here. First of all, when did Lord Chaitanya appear? Which year? Yes, Subho.
1486.
1486, yes, by the Western calendar. And he departed when?
48 years.
Hmm?
48 years.
48 years.
48 years.
Yes, 48 years after his appearance, yes. 1533, sometimes they say 1534. So, okay, 1534. And I don't have these notes right here, but there's several works then about his life, one of which was written while Lord Chaitanya was still present. And that was, let's see if I can remember the name, the Sri Krishna Chaitanya-charitamrita of Murari Gupta. And Murari Gupta was a childhood friend of Lord Chaitanya. Imagine knowing Lord Chaitanya personally, seeing him and interacting with him. That was the situation of Murari Gupta. And interesting, I find, is that Murari Gupta wrote his biography in Sanskrit. And it's consisting, let me see if I can remember, I think it's about 1,700 verses, Sanskrit verses. So that was the first known biography of Lord Chaitanya. The word biography, as I mentioned before, I'm going to be writing about Chaitanya-charitamrita for a kind of so-called scholarly work. And scholars would be not so happy with the use of the word biography in this context. Why? Why would they not be happy with that? Because they would say, well, biography is, if somebody writes about someone in modern times, maybe someone writes a biography of some political figure. So there's a lot of documents that can be referred to, so you can verify, the history and so on. That they would say, yes, that we can say is biography. But what has been written about Lord Chaitanya, some will say, no, it's not biography, it's hagiography. What is hagiography? Well, hagiography means an account. You can call it a biography, a sacred biography, of a saint. In the Christian tradition, there's hagiographies of Christian saints. They have hundreds of them through the ages. And some of the hagiographies are maybe one paragraph. They don't know much more, And then there's some miracles told and so on. So they'll say, yeah, this is hagiography, which means the whole purpose that it was written was simply to glorify this person, and therefore don't expect that there's going to be much, if any, history as such. In other words, there's some skepticism there. We can maybe talk something more about that later, but the point is just when we're talking about biographies, what we might want to say is of Lord Chaitanya, sacred biographies, because the focus is on, especially in Krishnadas Kaviraj, it's focused on the theology, understanding just who is this person. This is no ordinary person. Yeah, so this is all being summarized. Chapters 13 and 14, Keshava Maharaj calls incarnation. It's an English word. Sometimes, not very often, but sometimes I'm engaging in some inter-religious dialogue event, and with Christians, you have to be careful with the word incarnation because their idea is there's only one incarnation. And maybe there will be a second coming, but there's only one. So we have another word, Sanskrit word, avatara. Avatara simply means one who descends. Ava means down, and tara means crossing down. In any case, but for English, people know this word incarnation, so he's used that word here. And he's managed all 12 of these terms in English, ending with T-I-O-N, so the abstract noun. Okay, incarnation, then education, or Nimai becomes Nimai Pandit, right? He becomes Nimai Pandit, and he's Nimai Pandit. Where is Nimai Pandit acting as a scholar? Where is this all happening? Mm-hmm. Where?
In Gaia.
No, not in Gaia. He will visit Gaia in Navadvip. And Navadvip is it Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur? One of our acharyas referred to Navadvip as the Oxford of India. It was a place of learning at the time, great learning. It was the place where a kind of special new style of doing nyaya, or logic, where it developed just sometime before, not long before, I think, Lord Chaitanya appeared there. And this new style became known as Nava-nyaya, which just means new nyaya. I once heard a presentation in Oxford. One visiting scholar from Japan gave a presentation explaining Nava-nyaya. And there were just a few students and professors attending. And I didn't understand at all what he was talking about. But I wasn't going to say that. But then at the end of his talk, one of our senior professors said, "All right, thank you. Could you just kind of summarize and make it clear to us what is the essential point?" And from his saying that, I understood he also didn't get it. And then this visiting professor from Japan, he just shrugged his shoulders and said, "No, I can't summarize it, I'm sorry." We all walked out of the room no more enlightened than when we went in. Anyway, Navanyaya, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was part of that scene. Vasudeva Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who then eventually went to Puri. Lord Chaitanya meets him there. There's a conversion event. Okay, education, then number 4, transformation. This is going to Gaya. Keshava Maharaj summarizes, Nimai receives initiation into the chanting of Krishna's names, transforms into a devotional live wire. You know the word live wire? Live wire. It means if an electrical wire is charged and you touch it, it's a live wire. Don't touch it. So it means someone who's really charged. So Lord Chaitanya becomes a devotional live wire. And he begins to popularize congregational chanting as the prime means of spiritual elevation. In other words, he starts the Sankirtan movement, right? He then accepts the order of sannyas and becomes known as Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Now, what Krishnadas is describing in this chapter, chapter 17, is again very much elaborated by Vrindavan Das. In fact, Vrindavan Das doesn't really get much beyond this point, beyond his taking sannyas. So this is a very dramatic section, I would say, and this is one way that you can appreciate Chaitanya-charitamrita. Is if you like drama, then you can there's certain episodes that you can focus on. One of them is here, when Lord Chaitanya goes to Gaya, and what happens in Gaya? Huh? Yes, he goes there on the pretext. You know the word pretext? Pretext means like making an excuse. In terms of Leela, we understand he has his purpose in going to Gaya. And what is that purpose? He's going to meet it's two personages, One, he's going to meet Ishvarapuri, his guru, and the other, he's going to meet Krishna in the form of Krishna's footprint, specifically known as the Vishnupada. This is a temple. Has anyone here been to Gaya? I visited Gaya. You've been to Gaya? Yeah. You've seen the Vishnupada? You don't remember? It's kind of the main temple in Gaya, as far as I know. And it's a big stone slab, and they have a little fence around it, as I remember. And this stone, there's a big impression of one very big footprint. And we are told that that is a footprint of none other than Vamanadev. When Vamana was granted the boon to receive 3 steps of land, he then proceeded to take his steps. And as he took 1 step, his foot is pressed down, and this little dwarf became, from Vamana, he became Trivikrama. He became cosmically vast in size. That Vamana Trivikrama's foot impression is now worshipped, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw this, and when he saw it, there's different versions. It's not described in by Krishnadas Kaviraj, but there's different versions. Exactly what happened, but at some point he became just completely overwhelmed. We would say in slang English, he lost it. But he didn't really lose it, he gained it. He got it. He got the inspiration. And a second profound transformation, and again, exactly which happens when, but is when he meets Ishvarapuri, whom he had already met sometime before in Navadvip. He meets him again, he receives from him a mantra. Which mantra did he receive? That is a matter of debate. We usually understand he received the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. But there are hints that it was another mantra that he received. No doubt a Krishna mantra, but it's mentioned a 10-syllable mantra. Yes, and in any case, what Krishnadas does report to us is that it was utterly and completely transformative. And so we can say, in a certain sense, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is himself exhibiting at this moment a kind of conversion. A conversion. He's becoming something that was not manifest before. So that when he goes back to Navadvip, he's going to be like a completely different person. And some are going to be in great anxiety, and some are going to be very happy to see Lord Chaitanya in his new mood, his very different mood. But his transformation is going to be such that he seems to lose the capacity to engage in ordinary dealings. He can no longer hold a job. You know that expression, to be able to hold a job, to be gainfully employed in an office. So he could no longer do any of that. He could no longer be the sort of normal pundit who was preoccupied with all the details of Sanskrit learning at the time. Just didn't matter anymore. What mattered to him now was Krishna, 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 Krishna. Gopi, Gopi, Gopi. At one point he was so distracted he was chanting Gopi, Gopi, Gopi. And his students said, "What is wrong with him? Now he's completely lost it." And they started saying very improper things. They were insulting him. In Bengal, students to this day are known for being sometimes quite, how to say, they can be quite wild, and they can be very rough. They can be very proud. They can also be a little dangerous. I found out once. I was with one other devotee visiting a couple of professors at Yadavpur University in South Calcutta. And we had driven in a Hare Krishna van. It had Hare Krishna all over. The whole mantra was on the van. So we were very obviously Hare Krishnas. And when we came out from meeting the professors, there was a group of students standing around our van, and they did not look happy. Because at that time, Yadavpur University was a hotbed of Naxalite, which means radical communist, anti-everything politics. So we came, the professors were nice, and we had a nice meeting with them, but when we came out, the students were like, "You better leave right now." And we said, "That's exactly what we planned to do." Well, there's a kind of follow-up to that story, and that is that several years later, through some very nice arrangement that was done by one devotee scholar, he's a professor in Sweden. He's developed a nice relation with one department in Yadavpur University, to the point where we had an entire conference at Yadavpur University on Vaishnavism, a public conference. And there was no confrontation with students, nothing. Everything was I don't remember it. I think the vice chancellor came, many officials came and so on. So it was quite a transformation. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. What got me on that? Students. Yes, so the students in Lord Chaitanya's time apparently were also not so nice and not appreciating Lord Chaitanya. So that's when he decides it's time to make an extremely radical step, and that was to take the sannyas order. Extremely radical. He was for many reasons radical. He was very young. Lord Chaitanya was how old at the time? 24. He's just a kid. You don't take sannyas when you're just a kid. He was married. He didn't have any children, but he was married. His wife's name was Vishnupriya. Young, sweet, charming young lady, innocent. So, okay, he's 24, he's married. His brother has left home already. Vishvarupa had left, apparently taking sannyas. He just left. Apparently just really cut off all relation and left. And he's never going to be heard from again. There will be rumors, maybe he went to Maharashtra, maybe he met Lakshmi Pati Tirtha or Madhavendra Puri, but nobody knows. So Sachimata was she was broken-hearted about that enough. You can imagine, especially ladies can imagine, mothers, how that would feel. And now the second, the younger son, and mind you, there were several failed births, what do you call it? Stillborn. Yeah, there were many, one after another prior to this, at least. That's what we're told. So now he's leaving home. But aside from all of that, just generally speaking, to take sannyas in this culture was a radical thing. It was a known thing, and that's why he was doing it. It was known. Yes, you take sannyas, and then you commit yourself in that way, and everyone is highly respectful of the sannyasis. But it was just so radical. It was very radical. Well, that was Adi Lila, and then we have Madhya Lila, and then we have Antya Lila. And we have 4 sections of each. Renunciation is Madhya Lila chapters 1 through 6. Propagation, Madhyas 7 through 15. Aspiration, 16 through 18. And organization, 19 through 25. When Srila Prabhupada wrote, he wrote a summary study, so to say, of Chaitanya-charitamrita, the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, die Lehren Sri Chaitanyas, consisting mainly of summaries of, Madhya Lila chapter 8, which is Lord Chaitanya's meeting with Ramananda Rai, and chapters 19 through 25. Lord Chaitanya's meeting and teaching to Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Sanatana Goswami. Actually, just one chapter, 19, is Rupa Goswami, and the rest is Sanatana Goswami. So teachings of Lord Chaitanya is only, small portion of Chaitanya-charitamrita. Right, renunciation. Having adopted the renounced order, Sri Chaitanya begins his life as an itinerant preacher. You know the word itinerant? Means moving around. After a final meeting in Shantipur, he bids farewell, he says goodbye, to his beloved family and friends and travels to Jagannath Puri. One thing you can look for in Chaitanya-charitamrita, I mentioned there are dramatic parts and there are also humorous parts. And one of the humorous parts is now I'm not sure, is it chapter 2? You're reading, I think, chapter 1, Madhya Lila, which is, it's summarizing, right? It's mainly summarizing what's coming in Madhya Lila, and I think also Antya Lila. Anyway, the description of Lord Chaitanya's, after he takes sannyas, he wants to go to Vrindavan, and what happens? He gets tricked. And where does he end up? He ends up at Advaitacharya's house, right? He has spent some time wandering with Nityananda Prabhu, who has been telling him lies. And Nityananda Prabhu has been part of a conspiracy. And the conspiracy is to get Lord Chaitanya to have one last meeting with his mother. Because it was a bit too abrupt how he left. He really just kind of, got up and left apparently in the middle of the night. There's a nice painting of this. Middle of the night, disappearing. So when he meets his mother at the house of Advaitacharya, his mother says, what's wrong with you? What have you done? And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, I'm so sorry. I made a mistake. But it's too late now. After taking sannyas, there's no question of reversing it. I'm sorry. All right. So just do one thing. You go to Jagannath Puri and you stay there. No question of him coming back to Navadvip. He would be too close to home. As I said, taking sannyas in those days was a very serious thing. It's not, now we kind of keep contact with the family. But no, in those days it was not like that. So she said, all right, go to Jagannath Puri, you stay there, and because there is a lot of pilgrimage between Jagannath Puri and Navadvip, naturally there will be news. At least we will hear news about you. If I can just hear about, your brother disappeared, we never heard from him. If I could at least just hear about you, hear some news, then I'll be pacified. So he agrees to that, but he doesn't keep his promise. He goes to Puri, and immediately after almost immediately, some days he's in Puri for some time, and he's meeting Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and Sarvabhauma, after that whole discussion, that's in chapter 6, when Sarvabhauma becomes suddenly a fanatic Hare Krishna, to the point where, how does the verse go? Tate nukampan susamik shamano bunjana evatma kritam vipakam ritvak vapurvir viridam namaste jivetayo mukti pade sadhaya bhag. That's the verse. But Sarvabhauma becomes a fanatic. He wants it to change from mukti pade to bhakti pade. Oh, it's all about bhakti. And Lord Chaitanya says, no, don't be fanatic. You know, we can't change the Bhagavatam. It says mukti pade. So, but then Sarvabhauma says, you know who you should meet? Now that I understand who you are, I can appreciate that you will be able to appreciate Ramananda Rai. You should go meet Ramananda Rai. Okay, where is he? Well, he's in Rajmundry. Okay. I'm going. He completely, seems like he forgot the instruction of his mother. We might understand, though, that his idea was to go quickly there and come back. But as we know, it wasn't so quick. It was 2 years, and then it was 3, 4, 5, 6 years, actually, before he came back to Puri. Why? Because propagation, Madhya Lila, chapters 17 through 15, 7 through 15. This is describing his travels in South India. And here I'll just mention, and then we can stop for today. One way of understanding Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's travels and his preaching in general is that he is performing what is called Digvijaya. Digvijaya. He is conquering the directions. Conquering the directions. What does that mean? That means he's going in all directions and he's conquering wherever he goes. He's establishing the Siddhanta. He's going and he's arguing with various acharyas, various groups, and he's showing the superiority of Krishna Bhakti. Sometimes he does this in a, sort of strong preaching analytical way. Sometimes there's some humor involved. Sometimes he just kind of meets someone and shakes his head and says, oh, they don't get it. And then he goes. That's kind of what happens with the so-called Tattvavadis, the Madhva Sampradaya. Something humorous happens when he meets this group of Buddhists in South India, and they want to trick him to eat something untouchable, some meat apparently, and there's instant karma instead when this big bird comes, a crow, picks up the plate, lifts it up, drops it on the head of the main Buddhist monk, and he falls over unconscious, and then he is awakened. How is he awakened? Anyone knows? Yes, Mahaprabhu tells the other monks, the Buddhist monks, chant Hare Krishna and it'll wake him up. Yeah. Or when he jokes, before all of that, he's 4 months staying with Venkata Bhakta in Sri Rangam during the rainy season, and he's joking with him. He says, "You're Lakshmi. What is your Lakshmi doing? She is going to Vrindavan. She wants to join the Rasa Leela. Why would she want to join the Rasa Leela unless the Rasa Leela is superior to your Narayan? You Lakshmi Narayan worshippers, come on, face it. Higher is worship of Krishna, Radha Krishna. And Krishnadas tells us that Venkata Bhatta says, yes, you're right, but what can we do? What can we do? This is our tradition. We worship Lakshmi Narayan. What to do? So like that, there's friendly exchanges and some are not so friendly, but all of them always centered on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and in this context, propagation. He is propagating the message. He's inspiring people to chant and dance. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Chaitanya-charitamrita ki jai. So, any thoughts, reflections, questions? We'll continue, I think, with this. Yeah, we can continue with this overview with the help, I think, of Keshava Maharaj's little diagram, but then we'll also go into some other aspects of Chaitanya-charitamrita over the next days. Is that all right? Yes.
To the point of transformation, where we said that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu somehow changed his mood or developed another mood which was not there before. This is also exactly this point when he got actually initiation, right?
Yes.
Yes. So this is kind of an example for us also that we start to transform or develop things after the initiation, which we don't have before. Can you compare this?
Yeah, we can say this is empowerment. This is that's a theme that our dear late His Holiness Kadamba Kanana Maharaj used to like to speak a lot about, is how Chaitanya-charitamrita is all about empowerment. Many episodes are about empowerment. Lord Chaitanya is empowering different devotees. So in this case, it's Ishvarapuri empowering Mahaprabhu. And yes, it's a kind of model. Model means it's also a kind of ideal. So we're not Lord Chaitanya, we're not Ishvarapuri.
Sure.
So we can't say, how come that's not happening to me? But it is something we can appreciate. And we can see, I think we can see, to at least feel some empowerment of some sort. The famous verse from 11th canto that's quoted, Shri Vijay Gauranga Dayo Nitai Ki Jai Evam Vrata Svat Priyanama Kirtya Jatanu Rago Dhruta Chitta Ujjai Hasatyato roditi rauti gayatyun madhavan rityati lokavaya. Ishvara Puri quotes that verse when Lord Chaitanya comes to him after he's feeling too much ecstasy. He says, "What's wrong with me?" And Ishvara Puri says, "Whatever is wrong with you, it's very good." And then he quotes this verse, and I forget, does Krishnadas say or does Prabhupada say, this is something like the essence of the Bhagavatam, this verse, this most essential verse, describing evam vrata, one who makes this vrata, this vow of chanting, svapriyanama kirtya, jata anuraga, then is awakened anuraga. Anuraga means strong attachment. Druta chitta uchayan, druta chitta, flowing, his consciousness is it's spilling. Hasatyati roditi gayatyam madhava. And so he laughs, he cries, he shouts, and dances and acts like a mad person and doesn't care what anyone thinks. Lokabhaya, doesn't care what anyone thinks. Like our Mahavishnu Swami with his funny hat. And Harinam, he doesn't care what anyone thinks. Just chanting with the devotees. Anyway, so that idea, we can get a bit of that sense, and that is essentially the principle of empowerment. Srila Prabhupada said in one lecture that anyone who is chanting the Maha Mantra, we should understand that person has received the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. And when I heard that, I had this sense that Prabhupada was saying, in some sense, that person has been initiated into the chanting of the holy names. Because receiving the mercy of God, it's something more than just, I got some mercy, Jai. It's something more than that. Yes.
Maharaj, thank you for the nice lecture. How does it start? I'm not very expert in the Chaitanya, but when does it start? That they go on the street and chant the holy names?
Lord Chaitanya returns from Gaya. He's received some mantra, and it seems very soon after that, he starts having these kirtans in the house of Srivas Thakur and inviting his friends. And they're having kind of closed-door, private kirtans. And that goes on for some time. How long? I think one estimate has it that it was just about 1 year between the time Lord Chaitanya went back to Navadvip from Gaya and the time he took sannyas. It's been estimated like that. That kirtan in Srivas Thakur's house was going on for some time. And apparently also they were sometimes doing dramas They were performing dramas. That's described not in Chaitanya-charitamrita, but in Chaitanya Bhagavān, quite extensively. There's some humor there also, because at least in one such occasion, there's not much of a sense of drama as in our understanding of drama is there's always some dialogue and there's some kind of conflict that needs to be resolved. It's more like expressing just certain moods and displaying maybe some rasa. There's a term in Hindi, junkie. A junkie is, in French they have the term tableau vivant. It's a kind of frozen freeze act. Everyone stands in one position. Tableau vivant. I don't know if there's a German term. So they have in India, North India, junkie. And I'm wondering myself whether some of this was like that. In any case, in one such stage performance, Lord Chaitanya plays the part of Lakshmi. And the way Vrindavan Das tells, he was so perfectly disguised as Lakshmi that even his own mother could not recognize him. Mothers always can recognize their children. But even Sachimata could not recognize. So like that, it's told. Anyway, it was about one year from Gaya return to taking sannyas. Apparently that's what it's generally taken to be. And then, yes, so the first was the private kirtan, and then it's kind of understood there was a sense that it can no longer be contained. There's too much ecstasy, and it needs to get out. It needs to come out into the public. And at some point, yeah, Lord Chaitanya says, okay, let's go. Yeah, and so they go out, and then the trouble starts. Yeah. Good, okay. Thank you all very much. Have a good evening. We'll see you tomorrow evening. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai, Shri Chaitanya-charitamrita ki jai, Gaur Premanande.